Well, hello everyone. My name is Elena Paventa and I'm a Club Growth Director in District 108. District 108 comprises 5 European countries. It is Poland, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia. And as it is a new district after European Reformation 1 month ago, our priorities now are increasing membership growth, retention, and of course, motivation of our members and quality of meetings. And we found that mentoring is a very effective tool in how to achieve that. That's why today we have a special guest with us, a Toastmaster from Australia, Philip Bendeich, past Region 12 advisor, and an expert in Toastmasters mentoring program. So thank you, Philip, for joining us. Before starting our webinar, a few organizational remarks. First, let's write our questions during the webinar in the chat box. We will have a question and answer session for that. And during the webinar, please mute your microphones so that we don't hear any noises. The webinar is recorded, so there will be a possibility to also see it once again later on our YouTube channel. So, Philip, thank you very much for joining us, and you are welcome. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Elena, and it's a pleasure to be here. As you can see, there I am all dressed up with my Toastmasters Region 12 advisor pin, and in doing so, it's given me an opportunity to get an understanding of the Toastmasters program to a greater depth. Here in Australia, we, like many existing districts, have been struggling somewhat with the development of members through mentoring. And it was a couple of years ago when I was fortunate enough to be appointed as a region advisor that I came upon the options and really started to, from my point of view, bring together some of the mentoring facilities that were available to us. And it came out of a visit that I was doing with a corporate club in a very remote part of Australia called Western Australia, and that particular event has somewhat led me to the position that I'm in today and be able to speak to all the wonderful people over there in District 108 and beyond. So welcome to all my European friends. One of the things, just very quickly, is how we're going to outline this particular webinar. The first thing we're going to be looking at is some district initiatives that may be available to you so that you can develop a mentoring program and help support the clubs and members in your district. And I think this is particularly important because here in District 70, we have just released, in fact, tonight is our awards dinner night, and we are recognising one particular club in their mentoring program. I'm very excited about that, and it's great to be able to share some of those ideas with you. The next thing I'll be looking at is how we develop a club mentoring program and some of the parts that come together to make that club program effective. I think this is, for me, one of the things that was missing previously. So I want to make sure that I'm sharing some of the current information with you guys. The third part of that is specifically mentoring members and how we do that. One of the things that I'm really pleased about is that Toastmasters International has really started to develop the mentoring programs through the Pathways system, and we're going to be looking at some of those bits tonight. Well, tonight for me anyway. And I want to thank your district executive, Piotr, Gabriela and Elena for inviting me along tonight, because through their provocation and through their incentives, it's given the members of their district and other districts an opportunity to gather some information. That's very exciting. So one of the things that we look at is a district-wide program. And as you can see, BART is going to adopt best practices. And we're really looking for excellence in promotion. I'm going to go in much detail about these, but really getting the word out there at the district level about the promotion of a mentoring program in each club. And then the third item is excellence in implementation of a mentoring program. Now, tonight's presentation is just one example of a variety of different options available to clubs and members. And it continues to develop and it continues to grow as new information becomes available. So what I'm going to do is suggest that if you go and look at a Facebook page that I've set up called the Toastmasters Mentoring Program. If you type that in, Toastmasters Mentoring Program Facebook page, you can go and access some of the current information that's been there for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then as I add more information to that, you'll be able to get that information and implement it. So just to confirm, everything is in transition, everything is being developed, and as that development occurs, you'll have access to that. So let's go back to the excellence in best practice. So as you can see, Bart, he's got his slingshot in his back pocket. He wants to make sure that he's doing best practices for sure. So one of the first thing that the support by the district should have is to make sure that clubs have systems in place that really engage members through their mentoring program. So one of the things that I'm talking about here is an award that is being presented by District 70 to develop mentoring programs in clubs. And the first item from that is to have mentoring engagement systems. So we'll be talking specifically about an engagement system in part 2 of our session tonight. And I want to help you along with that. The second part is that clubs ensure appropriate mentors are recruited. Now, this is a question that comes up very regularly. What type of attributes should a mentor have? Well, the first thing you should do is be a good listener. You should be somewhat patient. You should have knowledge of the processes and the systems and the programs, and also be willing to share that information. A willingness to share is by far, for me anyway, one of the major parts of a mentoring program. I'll tell you a story, perhaps if we've got time, a little bit that later. And the third part of this is to consider the protege needs when matching to a mentor. It's not just as easy as you might think, because the important parts to matching is to, first of all, understand the requirements that the protege has, and then try and match that to a mentor. So there will need to be some development of information coming from both the mentor and the protege, and then an example of matching that person's needs, whether it be leadership, whether it be communication, a combination of both. And specifically, as we develop the Pathways program, it's going to lead to very specifically, so for instance, I'm working in the dynamic leadership path at the moment. So I would probably say that my mentor needs to have a fairly good understanding of what dynamic leadership is all about, so that that person is well matched to me and I will get the most out of the mentoring options. The next thing I'm going to do to talk about is excellence in promotion. Now, many years ago, I heard a saying, it says, what gets promoted gets done. And I'm sure that your marketing people and your public relations manager would absolutely be aware of that. If so, the promotion of a club mentoring program throughout your district is going to enable those clubs to really get on board with it. And I'm really pleased that there was a little brochure that was developed in our district recently. Half of the information in that, I think it was 16 pages, half of that information was directly related to club mentoring programs. So very exciting that promotion is happening. So obviously mentoring needs to be promoted within clubs and in communications. So whenever you are having a communication within your club, perhaps have somebody in your club. So I'm a club president at the moment, and usually when I do my club meeting introduction, I talk about the mentoring. You need to share the benefits of mentoring to visits and in marketing material. It's an element of engagement that these days people are looking for. If they just go into a club to be a social, and particularly with younger people, I'm finding they really want to be engaged and get the most value out of the program that they can, and sharing the benefits of the mentoring program is one way of doing that. And of course, the celebration of successes. If you have somebody who has really developed as a result of being mentored, whether it be within Toastmasters or even in their day-to-day, their working life, you can take those successes and share those within your club and of course within the district as well. So the third part of this district-wide program that I'm talking about here is the implementation side of things. Now, I wouldn't suggest necessarily that the pilot, the requirements of design, implementation and training transition is going to be part of it, but really members are shown and understand the benefits to them and to all members when it relates to mentoring program. Members complete the Pathways mentoring program, and I've got some information specifically on that, just information that has been shared with one of our previous webinars that we've done, and of course that is available. So the Pathways mentoring program we know is at level 2, but there's also a very specific part to that mentoring program that we'll look at as well. And thirdly, mentors are supported in the club environment. Once again, it's part of the promotion, but you know, we like to be recognised for things, and mentors definitely should be supported throughout the implementation process of the club. So Elena, thank you for that quick introduction for the district-wide, and if you have any questions, I'm quite happy to have those looked at right now.
So we have a question on how many mentees can you have in order to have effective mentoring? I think it will be covered in a later part of the webinar, yes?
Yes. Look, it's really a matter of how much time you're willing to share with other people. I think one of the ways that we'll be structuring, and we'll be looking at the structure for this, is to see how an effective, because of the club structure, if you're just talking within the club, how to structure it so that you're not doing all of the mentoring, so that mentoring is shared. So I do believe that we'll cover that off later. Thank you.
Okay, we have no more questions. Maybe now someone would like to ask a question, to unmute him or herself and ask a question on the promotion of mentoring program in the district. I can see that we have Division D leadership camp with us, because the whole our division join us. Greetings.
Well,
maybe you would like to ask questions, our district leaders.
Yes, I've got a question. I see Piotr is there, so I have a question for Piotr, if he's willing to share with me. How effective has your mentoring been to get you to be district director, and how do you see your development past district director in your mentoring roles?
Do you see Piotr here? Because I don't see him.
Oh yes, I see him. Is he Division D leadership? Might not be the same Piotr,
yes,
of course.
Maybe.
Okay. No worries.
Okay, so
okay.
as now we don't have any more questions, maybe let's proceed with the second part.
All right, let's continue on then, shall we? Fantastic. Okay. Now, how did this mentoring program come about? Well, I'm quite happy to say that back in May 2013, so it's over 5 years ago now, there was a report released by Toastmasters International specifically on the club mentoring program. And this is one of the pieces of information that I've used to develop some of the material that I have with me at the moment, and really to reinforce the need for an effective mentoring program at club and also at district level for the benefit of the members. So let's look at some of the information that came out of this report. I'm not going to go through all of this, it's far too much in the time that we have, but I'm just going to look here at this thing. 75% of mentoring programs are informal and unstructured. Now, I'm not sure what that means to you, but what it means to me is that they just don't exist. Informal and unstructured, I know things like that. For me, they just don't exist. So it's interesting that that 3 out of 4 mentoring programs out of this survey came in that situation. 79% of members say that the mentoring program is moderately to extremely important to their club experience. So here's the thing, the reinforcement that a mentoring program is going to develop almost 4 out of 5 members. And I would probably suggest that that 5th member, or the whole 100%, are really going to get something out of the mentoring program. So this once again reinforces the value of a mentoring program in a club to engage members. And here's this for me, 70% of club leaders want a formal mentor training program. Now, when the time that this report came out, and for a couple of years later, there really wasn't a formal mentor training program. But I'm very pleased to say that Toastmasters, through the Pathways program, has put that formal mentoring training program in place. And it's just a matter of time to determine how effective that training program is going to be. All right. Now, here's 4 things that the survey came up with. On page 10, we find that mentoring improves members' satisfaction. Well, if that's a given, then if we're looking to satisfy the members in our club, wouldn't it make sense, therefore, to have a mentoring program if that's going to be the case? In the yellow box up there, you say 30+ member clubs are more likely to assign mentors. So here's a question that I have often been asked of me. Did they assign mentors before they became a 30+ club, or were they a 30+ club and then had to assign mentors? I haven't got an effective answer to that just yet, but I'm interested to know what the people on this webinar think about that. And it's almost like, as they say, the chicken and the egg, which one came first? I would probably suggest, and you can disagree with me if you like, that clubs that had a mentors or assigned mentors to people developed into 30+ clubs, and therefore ensured that the retention that clubs look for and members that want to develop themselves, that's how that came about. Down in the blue box there, we see it's difficult to progress without a mentor. So that's a different way of saying it's easy to progress with a mentor. And once again, this reaffirms for me the value of having an effective mentoring program in the club and the development of the members to achieve what they want from the total Toastmasters package. And once again, in the coloured box down there, it's higher rated mentoring increases award achievement. Now, if it was only award achievement that people were after, I'd say that's okay. But really, we've had it well documented that award achievement also retains members and develops clubs into high-performing clubs. So conversely, the mentoring program is going to develop your club into a high-performing club. And I think those 4 items that have come specifically from that mentoring survey make good sense. I'd also like to draw your attention to the 2015 strategic plan on page 15, where it talks down the bottom here about the strategic initiatives. And in the first item of that, it talks about the individual member experience, and that being a strategic initiative to the goal of all clubs deliver a consistent, high quality member experience, regardless of location. Now, in doing so, we know, and I have a personal experience of this, of the opportunity to implement a mentoring program for people all across the world with activities and options like Zoom or webinar services, Skype and the like. You can mentor anybody in any country at almost any time. I know this for a fact. I have a gentleman who's currently resides in the English countryside, and I'm working with him for him to achieve his distinguished Toastmaster and prior to the closure of the traditional education program. So I would never be able to do that without technology. So I'm a bit of a lover of technology. And of course, the Pathways programs. It talks about learning, mastering fundamentals, increasing knowledge and demonstrating expertise. So a couple of the things that in the mentoring program, it's a series of 4 projects that we know, and all members complete an introductory mentoring project at level 2, and this is where it shows up. So it doesn't matter which path that you're currently working in, you will have an introduction to Toastmasters mentoring within that path. And I'm just cognizant of this at the moment because I have just started my level 2 in dynamic leadership, and I'm working through the Toastmasters mentoring introduction, not quite as we speak, but close enough to it. Ending in the advanced mentoring project. So project 2 is to prepare for mentoring, a reflection on your readiness to mentor others. Project 3, mentoring, is testing your skills as a mentor and receiving feedback on your mentoring ability. And project 4 is the advanced mentoring. So it's a full-scale assignment requiring meeting with your protege over a 6-month period. And it has records and information to guide you, like all of the project descriptions. So for the purpose, this one is to apply mentoring skills during a long-term mentoring commitment. And I'm very excited by the fact that mentoring should be, and is for me, a long-term commitment. In that particular project, there are some other tools available in the program, of course. There's a mentor evaluation, there is a mentor self-assessment, and of course, there's a mentor communication and tracking log. So these are 3 new parts of the mentoring program that didn't exist in the traditional program. So I'm very excited by the material that's available through Toastmasters International. Now, I'm interested, thank you, Elena. I'm interested to hear what questions our listeners may have at this point when we talk about that section of the program.
We don't currently have questions in the chat box, but before in Facebook event, we had questions how mentoring in previous system is different from mentoring in Pathways. Is there any difference in the systems?
Oh, extremely, extremely. Well, I think for the very first time, there is a mentoring aspect to the Pathways program. The very limited mentoring options available to you in the traditional education system were somewhat limited. There was only, for my knowledge, and please, I'm happy to be corrected here, was the project 9, it was from the competent leader. And that was only relatively new. And I think this is part of what we in Toastmasters has developed, the acknowledgement that there are parts to leadership development which are very much outside of what the traditional communication programs were. So if you remember the project 9 from the competent leadership, if you know of that, it was to mentor or coach a new member, mentor or coach an existing member, And the third one was to sit on the High Performance Leadership Guidance Committee of a member doing the high performance leadership. And you know, that is somewhat limited to what the traditional program was. And as we've just seen, Elena, we have a very extensive Toastmasters mentoring section to learn about mentoring, to understand yourself, get an understanding of your own available skill levels. And then there's the full-on Pathways mentoring program, which we've just very briefly touched on. So yes, very much different and very exciting to participate in. And I'm very looking forward to how the program ends up when I get to it. Thank you. Okay, so we have some
thank you.
Yeah?
Oh, I can see that we have some questions in our chat box from PR manager Justina, shared from our Facebook event. Those
Yes.
questions asked by Natalia. Will you cover them on a later stage, or would you like to answer them now?
I think I'll probably be covering off most of them. I was wondering if Natalia was on the program with us tonight. She might be able to ask the questions herself and answer any follow-ups. But there was one particular question there from Andre, and thank you to both Natalia and Andre for asking, is when can we start and finish mentoring? Well, we can start really at any time. I don't see that there has to be a need. You know, when it comes to mentoring, I would, if you have a good, exciting club environment that has an effective mentoring program in place, the person walks in, the moment they join the club, they are appointed a mentor or select a mentor. I would think that the first mentor should probably be appointed, but you need to go through some questions. You need to determine what the needs of the protege are and the capabilities of the mentor. So there needs to be some pre-work happen before you can start appointing people. So I think some of the other questions we will definitely get to as well. Thanks, Alana. Sorry, Alina, not Alana.
Okay, so let's continue with the next part then.
All right, then let's move on. Let's go. Okay, so here is a club member mentoring program. So we're now down into the level of the club itself. And in doing so, I'm going to share with you some of the parts and pieces of information that I found very valuable for me, because I started pulling information together. So this guide, once again, all these documents are available to your members and people on this call through the Toastmasters Mentoring Program Facebook page. If you go to the documents or files section of that, once you join up, you'll be able to look at all these. So this is just two sides of the same document, and I'll go into detail of how we got to this point. So step one here is to determine your current member mentoring relationship. So you may already have a program in place, and if that's okay, what I'm saying is don't throw it out, just start from wherever you are. I use a color coding system to develop the groups because it's just easy for me. I can tell based on my color coding system exactly what the person, the skill level perhaps of what the person is, or the likelihood of them to need a mentor. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So here I've taken an existing club and I've looked at the members, and with the executive, we've sat down and determined the groups. Now you can pick any grouping you like. I've just picked these things. So Group A would be experienced members, Group B is working on their experience, and Group C is not yet experienced. So that might be, for instance, that experience might be Distinguished Toastmaster. The next Group B could be not yet Toastmaster, but at least Competent Communicator, and or a couple of path levels. I've got to get used to the new terminology. And Group C might be just working in their first path, or not yet Competent Communicator, or maybe depending on each person. Now, the interesting thing with a group, a district like yourself, folks, is that you may have a new club, and maybe newly chartered, or you've just started your particular club. So for instance, I've looked here to have the club mentors. So you're working with a different grouping. So for Group A could be the club mentors, and then there'd be only 2 of those. You may be able to bring some other people in, but at least you're starting with 2. And then you would grab the club executive officers as Group B. So you're going to have a different person. So there would be the next grouping of people then to move up to the Group A with excellent mentoring. And Group C would be the rest of the charter members. So if you're charting with 25 people, that's where you go. So A, B, and C, and I'll show you how we work those numbers to develop the thing. Okay, so with your member mentoring relationship known, you can select or appoint relationships between the members. So you take the coding that we looked at before, so that type of coding. So for instance, Bill in this example would be A1. Okay, so here you take a number, and as you identify each particular person, so you may know that A7 may be mentoring C21. And you continue that for all of the people that are in your club. Now it's important. What's important here is to ensure that everybody in the club has a mentor. So how do we look at that? Well, here's an example. So we've taken A1, as you can see up here. Here's A1, and everybody's connected to the Vice President Education because the VPE is the person who's responsible for the mentoring. Now, that doesn't mean that the VPE has to manage it all, because as we know, they're a very busy person, but they are responsible for it, even though they may delegate the tasks to others. So here's A7 we looked at before, and it has a connection to C21. And you can see by the colors that an A7 is an experienced and a C21 is not yet experienced. Now, over here, I'll show you a couple of examples of what happens. So those people here are mentored by more than one person, there and there. So for this part, and you can have as many mentors as you like, and we certainly recommend it. Of course, it makes the drawing of the circles and the graphic a little bit more difficult, but it's not impossible. There's a way around everything. And the other thing you might notice that over here in the B people, they don't have mentors. So C3, C18 and B14 don't have mentors. And obviously you need to, once you know that information, you can then take that and make sure that everybody in the club has a mentor. So as you can see down on the bottom right-hand corner there, I started developing this back 3 years ago, and we've been working with a great deal of information since then. So that's how you might start, and this is how it might end up. Now, this is a real club that I belong to. So by the end of July in 2015, I was able to develop all of this. So look, here's me down here. I'm an experienced member, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people within that club that I was mentoring. Obviously not all at the same time. So both Bernard, Glenn and John were experienced, and then Simon, Jake and Anna were all over here off John. So as far as the limitation of how many people you can mentor, that's one way of showing how you can do that. So once again, it just depends on the capability of each individual person and their willingness to participate in the program. Now, I'm quite happy to say back in 2015, this Peter over here, he went on to become the club growth director, and tonight he's handing over to his the person who's taken over district director. So Peter has now gone through the TRIO program, and so he was a member of the club that this came from. So this particular club, a very effective mentoring program, and many people. So John has won the district speaking contest. Daniel has been a division governor, division director. Anna was a division. Bernard was a president. So here you have many effective mentoring options available to you. Okay, so that's how we developed the club section, so arrangement of club sections. So I'll be fascinated as to what people have to share, or what questions they might have. Okay, we have one there from Olga. She says, do you use any contract between the mentor and the mentee? It happens that there are expectations placed on the mentor, but mentee do not do anything. Well, yes, there is. And one of the ways that I'm going to show Olga, show everyone that how that particularly happens is in the next section of our program. So Elena, how are we traveling when it comes to the club program and how that's set up? Is that I know that has been quite effective. There have been a number of people, good friends of mine, that have taken this information and shared it, and I've got some feedback that it's a very exciting opportunity to put a mentoring program within a club and how to structure it, and obviously to share with everybody how that information comes together, etc. So Elena, you might like to field some additional questions at this time.
Yes, we have just this question from Olga at our group chat. You read it. Olga is our Division D director, and they are joining us from their leadership camp with other Toastmasters leaders. So, and we also have those questions from Natalia, and maybe we can cover now.
Okay, all right. Let's look at some of the when exactly mentoring for a club is needed. Well, I think I may have looked at that, because as soon as the club charters, in fact, even before it charters, you can have a mentoring program in place from the moment that you start having an idea. And really, that really should be part of the club charter, is to have all of the members having a mentor before the club even charters. So I hope that answers that. I wouldn't wait at all until I got into trouble before the club started having mentoring sessions, because if you start a club off right, if you start it off correctly with an effective mentoring program, it's just going to continue on and develop into perpetuity. So I definitely would recommend from the very start. We have another one from Ruth. The distinction between mentoring and coaching can be open to interpretation. Yes, I do have that. It's not something I'm going to be covering off tonight, but we have covered off that. If you go back to the Toastmasters Mentoring Program Facebook page, there is some excellent material within that, and I've covered that off on a number of occasions and on some previous webinars. It's not necessarily a subject I want to jump into now, Ruth, but you can look at that up. Okay, then I really would like to move now, Elena, into the member and protege, or mentor and protege part of tonight's presentation. So if there are no further things, we'll jump straight in there. All right, so this is a member achievement record, and in the traditional program, I thought it was an excellent document to be able to find and maintain all of the information that you have. Unfortunately, I went looking for it just this afternoon, believe it or not, and it's not available on the Toastmasters website. I'm not sure why, but if anybody would like a copy of it to maintain their traditional education program material in, just send me a request and I can send you a blank record of that. So that's something there. Now this mentoring checklist for members is something that I did develop myself, and might I just say that I had some great help from some of my colleagues, region advisors, back in 2014, 2015. Without their support, people like Morag, people like Don, people like Jim, believe it or not, current international directors who have really given me a great deal of guidance and feedback on this program. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do it, but I'm really pleased to be able to share their knowledge and information through myself to you. So once again, this is a checklist, and I think this is the contract part of the member and mentor that's been questioned. So one of the things that I start with here is if we're going to talk about communication, leadership, accountability, and that's part of the contract, the member needs to bring their current education activity documents with them to the review, or at least have available the online education status. So originally I didn't have any idea how Pathways was going to impact on this record or this checklist, but now as I develop more information, so we can share online access. I do start with the Toastmasters promise because I think it's really important that that is regularly shared and updated with the member. Without knowledge of the Toastmasters promise, you really, it's got everything there. 10 items that's got everything to do with being an effective contract and developing your contract between you and the other members of your club. For instance, down here we've got to serve my club as an officer when called upon to do so. Well, isn't that a service, and aren't we a service organisation to be able to provide that service to our fellow members? So to remind the people that I'm mentoring or that are mentoring me about my promise as a Toastmaster, I think that's only too valuable. Now you may see these grey little boxes over here in the document that I have. That allows you to tick this box over here on add some comments. You might make some comments about each of the Toastmasters promise. So all that does is allows you to type in information about each question. Now you may not go through the Toastmasters promise every time you have a mentoring session, but I'd probably suggest that at least once a year, it's the sort of thing you would be looking at. The next part of the document here is just to look at various items. So what I've done is taken the features, benefits, values guide that's available from Toastmasters and looked about the implementation part of that. So for instance, over here on the right-hand side, the plan and check off is I'm recording my information about the speeches that I've done. Down below is about speech writing, presenting. I've got some ideas that I've added here. Of course, those are interchangeable with anybody. But here's a record of I've completed all speeches from the Dynamic Leadership 1 program. And if that's all I've done, I've got a couple of options there. I can write them in as well. The second part is also part about evaluations. So I've confirmed that I've used the checkbox here. I've said, yes, I've given and received feedback, both speaking and leaded. Of course, now you can't do in a path without doing evaluations on yourself and about others. In this one here, I talk about sharing the opportunity. So word of mouth is the most effective tool for membership growth. So my accountability as a mentor is to ask the person I'm mentoring, how many people have you invited to Toastmasters? There's a contract for you, because if we look back up at the Toastmasters promise, it means we have to be sharing that opportunity with others, friends, family, and work colleagues. And as I said, I've invited dozens of family, friends, and colleagues to attend meetings. And there's some other things that we could be looking at there about being an officer role, etc. And in the last section here, I talk about the affordability of dues, and I say that I'm ready and willing to participate and pay for my own development, and participation outside the club. Do I go to area and division contests? Do I go to district functions and conferences? And of course, I would leave the last one there for international convention. When I was a district director in my district, I said if I could afford it, I'd take everybody to the international convention at which time my wife said, no, you won't, because we need the money. So you just never know. But if you've had the opportunity, and I believe in a couple of years' time, you can save up and just go to Paris, just down the road for you guys, you should definitely do that. So here's what I do. I finish it off with my expectations of my participation in the program, my mentor's expectations, and we sign it off and set a new date for the next mentoring session. So that's quite a very short section there when it comes to the actual mentoring session. So that's the time when you get together, when you sit down and you review the past period of time when you've been looking at. So what I'm really saying here, by using that document, you can, any person can take that document and lead another person through a mentoring session without having an absolute knowledge of what mentoring is all about. So Elena, I'm excited by that. I'm looking for some questions that might be coming from your participants, and I'm happy to take some questions on that.
Wow, Philip, thanks for sharing this this method. I think that most of participants now have a question. Can you share with us these materials later so we can use them in our clubs?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes, once again, if you go to the files section of that Facebook page, and if not in Facebook, I'm quite happy. What I'm doing is probably best thing to do, Elena, is I'll email it all to you, and if you want to share it or put it up on your district website page, that's fine. I can share it to your Facebook.
Philip, I'm sorry, there's something wrong with your voice.
Okay. Right. Can you hear me now?
No, it's still wrong. Can you try to mute yourself and then start again?
Okay. Okay, I've done that. Is that working more effectively? Is that better?
No, we can still hear some kind of everyone else is muted. I will try to mute them as well.
Okay, I can't see anything on my that pausing that. I might stop the video. That might help. Okay, I've stopped the video. Is that doing any better? Oops. Okay.
There is still the sound of cracking something. I don't know if anyone else hears that.
Yes, I can hear it as well. It is getting better now.
I can't hear anything. Maybe it's because of the internet connection down here. I'm stuck in a hotel room. Okay, so here's some questions. Can you hear me okay now? Is that any better, Elena?
Now it's a bit better, but we still can have some noises, yeah.
All right, then look, I might just continue on, because if we don't finish up, we won't ever get there. We've only got about 10 minutes to go. So
yes, we can do the questions.
Not sure what's happening there. So there's a question from Natalia: how to mentor a protege who wants to only focus on speeches? Okay, so that's okay. If that's what they want to do, that's perfectly acceptable. If we're talking about development of speeches, for instance, if you're not very good at speeches yourself, you may choose to suggest a different mentor for that person. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't maintain some type of relationship, but you have to work within your limitations. So if you're not necessarily an effective speaker yourself, or don't know how to coach or mentor someone for speaking, then that doesn't mean you have to. Mentoring is a relationship. You have to work for both parties. You can't just work for the benefit of the protege. I hope that's okay. And Yap and Celeste asked, do I understand it correctly that the form you used is to build a relationship between the mentor and the mentee? Yes. It's a method of recording the relationship as well, recording for posterity and for the future how effective the mentoring relationship has been. And certainly, yes, Yvette, everyone who's recorded and participated, and more, of course, will have opportunity to get that mentoring sheet. That's freely available to everybody. Lots of crackling noises, apologise about that. It seems to be recording okay from my point of view, but not sure. Check the cable connection. Maybe, no, I'm talking directly at the computer, so there is no cable connection. Do I have a checklist for the skills a mentor needs to have? Do you certify mentors? No, I don't. We're a not-for-profit organisation. There's no radio. Well, there might be a phone. Okay, I'll turn that off. I'll put that down. Give me a sec. I'll do the flight mode. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if that's made a difference, but it's now in flight mode. Hopefully that's made a difference. Can anyone confirm that? Elena?
No, I can still hear some
cracking noises.
All right then. Okay, I've put the phone up into the distance. I can't hear that though. If not in the Facebook group, that's quite okay. You'll still be able to get access to it. I'll share the documents to the people in District 108, and they'll certainly be able to share it. Or you can send a request to me directly. I'll type my email here. Send requests to Philip There we go. Okay, so I'm quite happy to share that information, and if anybody else is willing to share that, there's no limitations on where that information can be shared or used. But I would definitely like to hear back from people as to how effective it has been. I've had some great feedback from people across the subcontinent, in India and across the USA, where I've shared that. A couple of years ago, I was speaking in some districts in Middle America, and I've received some great information, feedback on that. Okay.
And we have one more question, Philip. It was from Richard from Division D. It was sent to me by Messenger. He has doubts about an experienced member having two mentors. What do you think about this?
You have doubts on it? Does that mean he doesn't think that they could have two mentors?
Yes. What do you think about an experienced member having two different mentors?
I think it's almost essential, because I don't believe for an experienced member, I don't see, and I'll share an example of that in a moment. I find that the more experience you have, the more mentors you need. For instance, you may know an Australian international president by the name of Mike Storkey. If you know Mike Storkey, I know he has told me personally, he has mentored me, and we share regularly on information about mentoring, that the more experienced you are, the more mentors you need.
And what about unexperienced members?
You can certainly have more than one mentor if you are unexperienced. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because, for instance, you may be able to find someone within your club or outside your club who has, what's the word I'm trying to think of, who wants to be a good speaking mentor, and someone wants to be a leadership mentor. If that's the case, then you would need to have two separate mentors. Okay. everything going okay? How are we close to time?
Yes, so if you can sum up everything.
5 minutes to go. Fantastic. All right, let's go. So what you can do next. So summary. Toastmasters club members want and need a mentoring program. I believe you can assign any member to assist the Vice President Education in leading the program at your club. It will give them great experience and will also start the VP finding option for you as well. You can show each member how they contribute to the success of the club. And I think people really want to be part of something successful. And the same goes for the district. If you can show each club how they contribute to the success of the district, people are going to want to come on board with the district and then be part of that. And you can track mentoring sessions among members. I think that's important. And most importantly, watch the members and the club, and of course, watch the district grow, as I'm very sure you are. You are currently at 84 clubs, I believe, and I'm looking forward to your growth in District 108 over the coming years. Well, Elena, that has been our District 108 member mentoring program. My name's Philip. I have had a very exciting time, and what I'm going to do now is turn that off, turn the video on, and let's say hello to all of our members
Thank you very much, Philip, for joining us. Gosia, can we now mute Philip for a second to... Oh, yes, thank you. So thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. So we're sorry for this technical problems in the end of the webinar. The webinar will be shared on our YouTube page, and we will share all your materials also in our Facebook event. And thanks a lot, Gosia, for our administration manager, for organizing and recording this event. Also, thank you very much to Justina, our PR manager, for promoting the event. And of course, to all participants, thank you for your interest and engagement into this topic. Our next District 108 webinar will be in September. It will be devoted to development of weak clubs, so it might be interesting for club coaches and mentors and club officers. So follow District 108 on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and see you at the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.